Hey guys, welcome back. This is our, I think, final show in the segment. We're kind of talking about how to survive the financial storm that's brewing, the coming financial storm, but really the current financial storm as well. And we're doing that from the Book of Proverbs. For those that are just joining us, we are going through the Book of Proverbs. We've taken a little bit of a side trail, stopping on Proverbs 23, and really just exploring the understanding, the idea of finances, wealth, work, investing, all these kinds of things from a biblical perspective. And then probably the next time around, we'll jump back into Proverbs 24 and keep going. There's just some topics that are so big and they're all over. There's lots of scriptures throughout Proverbs and the rest of the Bible that I felt like it was just good to stop and do it here, or do a little bit more here. But I also feel like the timing of this, like it's very apropos to stop and try to give some financial education to people. And I know probably nobody's life is going to be just absolutely changed, 180 degrees, like total wake up call just from the little bit of stuff we're doing here. But hopefully we'll be planting some nuggets, giving some information, and inciting some folks to do more learning, growing, and developing in this area. So again, it's just about trying to help people navigate some very important parts of life, and of course doing it from a biblical perspective, which is what this show is all about. So couple of things to dive in here. I am going to talk about some specific areas that the Bible has answers for us in, things like work ethic, things like debt, saving. But I do want to start with kind of a macro view. In our economy right now, really in the world right now, especially in Western countries, why are we in the position that we're in currently? It's not just the United States. Like, there's high inflation, there's all this stuff like this, just mounting, crushing debt all over the place. Why is this the case? The reason is we have had blessings upon blessings upon blessings really heaped upon us. Yeah, I don't think it was just luck or fortune or anything like that. I think there are some very specific fundamentals about human nature and things like economics, which it is kind of a science, but there's also, it's not a hard science, like a physical science, right? It's not 2 + 2 = 4, but there are some very universal truths when it comes to things like economics. And I think folks in Western culture have really tapped into, especially in the United States of America, we've really tapped into, I'd say, optimizing the realities of things like human nature, economics, just stuff like that, and optimizing a system that allows for optimal growth, wealth for the greatest number of people. There have been systems over time that have tried to do this, but I think most of them have failed utterly and completely. And it's not that ours is perfect, as we can certainly see, but I think, again, our system is the one that gives sort of the optimal ability for the most amount of people to really do well, to be wealthy, to have financial independence, and things like that. But there are problems, and some of the problems stem from, again, human nature. Human nature is corrupted. We are fallen. We are fallen creatures. There is sin. There is lack of perfection. And of course, this is the result of the fall in the Garden of Eden. And this is who we are. And this is why we need Jesus Christ. We need to come into his kingdom. But from a financial perspective, an economic perspective, one thing that hurts us a lot is our greed, our materialistic sort of focus and nature. It's okay to build wealth. We talked about that last time. It's okay to be rich. We talked about that last time. But we don't want to focus on that. That doesn't need to be like, oh, that's the thing we're striving for. That's our main goal. And even if we don't call it rich, really finances and financial gain, even if we're not looking to quote unquote be rich. And of course, my definition of rich is however much money that other person has, right? Because we never, I bet you Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, he's probably looking at somebody else that has more money than him and trying to aspire and make even more money, whereas most people would be like, dude, how much money do you need? Right? So a lot of times, especially, well, I'll just take a little side note here, especially when you hear people say things like really dumb things like tax the rich need to pay their fair share, or whatever it is. Again, the definition of rich there is usually somebody other than me that I perceive has more than me, or whatever it is. It's not, how do you define rich? What are taxes? What is fair? What are we sharing in, right? They never really define all of these things. It's just like a slogan, right? The rich need to pay their fair share. Well, I don't think there's a single person in the world that disagrees with that. Every person should pay their fair share, but it's when we start defining those words and getting into what does that mean, that's where we have all the disparity. But just the slogan, the rich, well, the non-rich should pay their fair share. Every person should pay their fair share. Every family should pay their fair share. And this is one reason this is one reason we've gotten into trouble. We look at other people, we want what other people have. I think the Bible calls that covetousness. Pretty sure that's a sin. We're not content. The Bible often tells us to be content with kind of what we have, where we are. Doesn't mean you can't strive to have more or be better, but we do need to, while doing that, we should also be content. We shouldn't be have a love for money or a strong urge to be rich. These things can cause us problems, and often what it does is it leads to us getting into things and doing things in ways that are not the best for us. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about some of the behaviors and stuff. But from a large perspective, right? We have a governmental system that pumps out money. We have something like COVID happens, or we have an issue in the economy, and they start issuing out quote unquote free money, pumping it in, and then there are economic circumstances, there are economic repercussions, things like inflation. Now, we shut down the economy for quote unquote safety, supply chain issues, right? Supply issues. But does demand taper off? Well, not when you're pumping a bunch of money into the economy. So you have all this high demand, you don't have supply, that drives prices up. There's a lot of things happening where it's behavior on our part. We do this. Now, I have a couple of things that I think it's a quick couple of facts that puts this in perspective. It's like a microcosm that shows what the grander thing that I'm saying. Here we go. Ready? So Business Insider did a little piece, and they determined, and they said it this way actually, whether it be grabbing a sandwich on your lunch break or sitting down at a restaurant for dinner, Americans love dining out. In fact, Americans eat out 5.9, just round that to 6, right, times a week on average. So we eat out on average 6 times a week. Okay? Now, the folks at the Motley Fool, this is fool.com, they did a little piece on cash savings. And this is what they found. They found the Federal Reserve, okay, we talked about the Fed a little bit, I think last time, sometime in the series. The Federal Reserve reports that 36%, so more than 1 out of 3. So you count a group of people, 1, 2, 3, that person. 1, 2, 3, that person. 1, 2, 3, that's a lot of people. Okay? 36% of Americans don't have enough money on hand to cover a $400 emergency, meaning they can't come up with $400 cash to take care of an emergency, something that's possibly critical or dire. $400. They also found that 35% of Americans have $1,000 or less in savings. And then they found that almost one half of Americans have no savings for retirement. Zero. What is their plan? What exactly is their plan? I'm here to say they probably don't have a plan. They're just not thinking about it. They're maybe you can say, well, they're young, they're not thinking about it or whatever, but I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, I started saving for retirement day one when I had my first job. So, yes, it's a mindset thing, it's a behavior thing. We talked about that in the very first session here, but at the same time, we're eating out 6 times a week. So we can't come up with $400, but we can eat out 6 times a week, right? Let's just pretend we eat out once every workday. We go out to lunch, we spend $10. This is easy math, right? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we spend $10 at lunch. That's $50 a week. That over 4 weeks is $200 a month. If we just brown bagged it, basically, we could have our $400 for an emergency in 2 months. We could have our $1,000 emergency fund, right? Think about that, in 3 months. Well, just less than 3 months. But do we? Why can't we do this? We can. It's a I see, I want, I must have now mentality. It is a materialism. It is a comfort-oriented me-ism that is abundant in our society. Now, maybe I'm not talking to you. Maybe you're like, no, that's not me. But it is the average person, the average American. Now, we may not think we're rich, but how much of the world, what percentage of the world do you think can afford to eat out 6 times a week? It is extremely low. We are wealthier than, I don't know, 70, 80% of the globe. I mean, even people that don't have $400 to cover an emergency, they don't wake up wondering if they're going to eat that day because, the harvest may not be exactly what it's supposed to be. So what is my point? My point is we are in the predicament that we are in. We are in the predicament that we are in. We are in this predicament mostly because of our collective behavior. Now, maybe not individual. I told you I don't eat out 6 times a week. That average, I'm driving that average down. You take me out of that average and maybe it goes up from 5.9 to 5.901 or something. I don't know. But I don't eat out anywhere near 6 times a week. Could I? Yeah, I could. But I don't. And it's a behavior thing. It's not that I don't like eating out. It's not that food's not good to me or something, but it's a matter of making choices and trying to be wise with my finances, also health. Can't imagine why our health is so bad when we're eating out 6 times a week. And maybe we'll do a segment on health and stuff too, just kind of do a multi-part series on that. But again, this is behavior. And forgive me, but I'm just going to call it like it is. We have a society of covetousness. We look at people and we have slogans like tax the rich, and what we really mean is tax everybody else should be paying more than me and make me more comfortable. That is not correct. Should everybody pay their fair share? Absolutely. But should we sit down and figure out what that is? Absolutely. I think most people that say that, certainly most politicians that ascribe to that, if you were to say, all right, let's have a 10% flat tax. Everybody just pay 10%. That's totally fair. If you got $1 million, you pay 10%. If you got $10,000, you pay 10%. Nobody's going to go for that, right? So what is fair? What does that mean? Somebody is more successful, has more money. They should pay more. Do they use the road more? Do they... Why? What is your reasoning behind that, right? Again, I'm okay with even a graduated tax bracket system if it makes logical sense why we are doing this. I think a flat sales tax is good. If you consume more, you spend more. Okay, that makes sense. So if you don't buy, you don't have to. You're not taxed. You'd also catch all the all the illegal enterprises out there that don't pay income tax, But if they want to go buy something with their illegal money, they got to pay tax, right? I think that's a good idea. Again, just spitballing, throwing. This isn't even in my notes. I'm just throwing stuff out there, just talking. But here's the problem. Our society is based on covetousness. That is a sin. It is a rampant, evil, horrible, detrimental sin, not only to our souls, but to society. When other people, it's not fair that my neighbor has this and I don't. It's not that. Why is it? Why do we have to look at everybody else? Why don't we just look at ourselves, between us and God, and focus on that? But we don't. We don't. Now, individually, maybe you do. Individually, maybe I do. But as a collective, as a society, this is why we are in the state that we are. You have covetousness, and so I got to keep up with the Joneses. If this person has a new car, well, I feel bad. I feel less than. I feel inadequate if I don't run out and get a new car. So now I'm going to put myself in a financially precarious predicament because what? Because I want somebody to perceive me in a different way. We have people going out living in neighborhoods, buying stuff just because of what other people will think. We have all this stuff going on in society. It is behavior. It is bad, and it is getting us into the place where we are. As Americans, as our society, right? We have stopped producing. We have stopped being producers, world producers. I talked a little bit about gross domestic product and how we're probably in the middle of a quote-unquote official recession, but some of it is because we import all this stuff. We don't make anything. We don't do anything. We have all these regulations and stuff, and we just feel like, well, we can just buy stuff cheap from, fill in the blank. Where do we buy it cheap from? Mexico, China, Taiwan, India. What is this? Who are we? Who have we become as a nation? I think when we put the mirror on ourselves like that, it's not looking good. It's just not looking good. Now, there's a great place where you can go. It's called federalbudgetinpictures.com, and it shows where like our over time, how our money works and where money has gone to. It shows, if you go there, you'll see that so much of our budget, or if you can call it that, the money that goes to government goes to entitlement programs. So much of it goes to paying for these things that are supposed to take care of people, and again, they call them entitlement programs. They don't go to national defense. They don't go to, maybe some interstate infrastructure or things like that. No. The bulk of it goes to things that really the average American should be taking care of themselves. Like we should be taking care of that ourselves. We shouldn't be relying on some government, some faceless government entity to do this for us. Yet we do. And that's, again, behavior. It is mindset. It is behavior. So I'm going to talk about some of those specific behaviors. Again, right? Cash savings versus eating out. That's a microcosm, just a little tiny pictorial way of me showing this is why we're in the place that we're in. This is why. We've got to stop the consumerism. We've got to stop the materialism. We've got to start being people who do things the biblical way. Now, what is the biblical way? First, I'm going to talk about work ethic, okay? I'm going to go through these kind of rapid fire. I don't think any of these scriptures are things that people would look at and go, my goodness, I've never seen that verse before in my life. This is revolutionary. I doubt it. Maybe, but I doubt it. So here we go. Ready? Work ethic. 2 Thessalonians 3, 9, and 10. We did this not because we do not have the right to such help, but in order to offer ourselves as a model for you to imitate. What were they doing? They were there. They were working while also ministering as apostles in the area. And they did it so that people could have a good model or example to follow. In verse 10, 2 Thessalonians 3:10, for even when we were with you, we gave you this rule, the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. That's a biblical principle. Now, I know, John Smith, famously in Jamestown or whatever, came over and, said this, but he was just quoting what was already in the Bible. If you don't work, you shouldn't eat. Well, Said another way, that's if you don't want to work, you should starve. And if you're the head of your household, and I mean, that means your family's going to starve, right? That's pretty quote unquote harsh, isn't it? But how many people in our society today game the system so they don't have to work? Combination of, entitlements, combination of unemployment, combination of, and again, I'm not against some kind of a true unemployment insurance type of thing happening in the state, although nobody's asking me, but if they were, I would have some very pointed things to say about them. I think we should have the empathy. I think we should want to help people, but we should help people very temporarily, and most of the help needs to be, how do we get you employed? That is where the help needs to be. Not how do we keep you on this? How do we extend unemployment benefits? How do we push a minimum wage? No. We don't need some of that stuff. What we need is we need people to be productive. We need people to get out and work. Oh, that's not my optimal best, super makes me feel good about myself job. Who cares? It's making you money. Okay, go make money and then find your optimal best self, life through work or whatever. People go to college and I think they're sold a bill of goods sometimes that if you go to college, that equals more income. It does not. I was talking to somebody recently and they have a friend that got out, and it's one of those like 2-year type of things, like I think it was nuclear medicine, like a nuclear medicine like tech. And they got out and they were making, I don't know, like 40 grand a year or something. But we started looking at how many hours they're working. And it came out that they're making like $20 an hour. Well, there's things you can get into, trades that you can get into, even just running a successful, very small business. You could easily be making $20 an hour plus. And so it was like, do you really need to go to school? I mean, only if you want to do that. And this is like this is my dream job, nuclear medicine tech or whatever. Okay, great. Awesome. Go to school and do it. But going to college does not equal more money. I went to college. I don't have a problem with college. I like it. And what I went to do, they're not going to hire me for that if I don't have a degree. So it made sense for me. But I was willing to work. This person was willing to work. That's the point. We need to be able to be willing, go out, earn money by the sweat of our brow, get it done, make money, support ourselves and our family. Which is what this next scripture talks about, 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone, 1 Timothy 5:8, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Again, pretty hard hitting. We are supposed to be out there working. We're supposed to be providing for our families. That is not the government's job. That is not the church's job. It is not the church's role and responsibility to take care of everybody that doesn't want to work. That is not the responsibility of society, meaning quote unquote government, right? Robbing that person and taking taxes from them to give to this person over here to buy their vote, right? We all know what it's really about. But to take care of them when they don't want to work. Now they've been hurt. There's something going on where they want to be out there working, but there's been some tragedy. Okay, again, we have a heart for something like that. I don't think a federal tax system is the best way to do that because there's no accountability. There's no way to really track it, and really there's no visibility into it. But on a community level, absolutely. I think communities can get together, be it like a church or be it even a small, accountable, maybe a city type thing or a local division of a city, like taking care of each other, that kind of thing. Absolutely. I think that's really a great idea for them to do that voluntarily. I think that's great. I would certainly take part in something like that. And I do. I pay taxes and I do that. But here's the thing. People need to be willing to work. And people don't need to make excuses when, hey, here's a job. Okay, and again, I've worked with people. I've worked with homeless people. I've worked with jobless people. I've done this stuff. And I'm telling you, there are times when it's like, well, here's a job. Well, that doesn't fit because of this. That's weird. Okay, here's another job. What about this one? Oh, well, I don't really like that because of this. You don't have a job. You don't have income. Huh? Okay, well, here's another one. No, I don't like that. Okay, man. This is crazy. But this is how we are as a society oft times. And we need to get away from it. Now, We need to be working, but we need to be doing things consistently. This is another thing that I've found. Anybody can do well for a season, maybe a month or a year, but it's the day in and day out. 10 years in, you're still going strong, right? That consistency, right? It's not only a mindset, but it takes action. There are times you're going to get up and you don't want to get dressed and go to work. You're going to do it anyway. There are times you have a bad week, a bad month. Maybe it's time after you've had a bad month to start considering what career you're in and shift. Maybe it's a little less money, but it will not be a drain and a drag on you and your relationships. Okay, that's between you and your spouse, or you or whatever. But the point is, we need to be working. We need to be doing consistently. Proverbs 10:4-5 says, a slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. He who gathers in summer is a prudent son, but he who sleeps in harvest is a son who brings shame. So there is a consistent working, right? Diligence. The hand of the diligent. Diligent isn't I did it one time. Oh, I did it for a whole week, man, and that working stuff's for the birds. That's not, no, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about consistency. Proverbs 21:5, the plans of the, again, diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is, here we go, hasty comes only to poverty. Again, consistency, day in, day out, day in, day out. So all the things I'm talking about, work ethic, as we talk about things to do and what things to change in our lives, it needs to be done consistently. Being wise one time in your life, that's good for that one time. It's not going to do you a whole lot of good over time, right? Because you made a great decision here. It was wise. You had counsel. You did all this stuff right. And then over here, you do a series of absolutely horrible decision after decision after decision. There's not some averaging system. We need to be wise, and we need to be wise consistently. Now, that was work ethic. Let's talk about debt. What does the Bible have to say about debt? Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is the slave of the lender. Again, when you say rich, a lot of times sometimes in our society, super rich people get on TV and talk about how horrible the rich are. And people watching don't make that connection. They go, yeah, stick it to whoever, right? And it's like, this person is rich. How can they possibly be? Right? Human nature, man. Manipulation. Human beings are so subject. We are so susceptible to manipulation sometimes, completely illogical manipulation, but it goes to our baser instinct of, I see that person over there, that person is more successful than me, that person has more than me, that person better off than me, or I don't like my situation, you're offering me this thing, this person, this outside external factor that I can blame it on. Yeah, let's do it, instead of looking internal and saying, hey, where have I contributed? Where have I maybe made unwise decisions? These are the things we don't want to hear when someone gets on TV, someone is in a meeting and tells us, hey, we have a scapegoat over here. Often people are just ready to throw onto that person or that system or that whatever it is. Recently it was the vax versus the unvax, and I said, at the time, working with people and things, we don't need to go off kilter here. We don't need to be starting to let people divide us based along these lines. If it's race, if it's socioeconomic factors, if it's vaccination status, whatever it is, we shouldn't be allowing people to divide us in this way. We should not be looking at people as others, and then we can cast all the problems, all the issues, it's on these others, whether it's immigrants or it's the rich or it's the poor. We should just not do this. So the rich rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave of the lender. So the borrower is slave of the lender. When you borrow money, you owe that person. They have something over you. They've got something on you. They've got a debt that you've promised to pay back. I wouldn't say that the Bible is just completely totally against having any kind of debt. but it doesn't speak super favorably of us. Certainly when we get into like usury, or we get into like the King James surety, right? You are putting yourself on the hook for somebody else's debt, or you don't even really have control whether it gets paid back, but you're on the hook. That isn't very wise. I think the scriptures there's a couple places in Proverbs, I believe, that talk about that. But see, Psalm 37:21 says this: the wicked borrows but does not pay back, but the righteous is generous and gives. So the wicked borrows but does not pay back. So the Bible, if there's debt, if there's something owed, we should pay it. We should pay it back. Romans 13:7 says, pay to all what is owed to them. Taxes to whom taxes are owed, revenue to whom revenue is owed, respect to whom respect is owed, honor to whom honor is owed. There isn't this element of, hey, if someone is owed something, we should pay it back. Now, a lot of Christians will kind of turn their biblical brains off on this and find every way possible to kind of, I promised to pay this back. I got into debt. I put it on, say, a credit card or something. Now I'm having trouble paying it off, and I don't want to have to. And I want to keep using whatever it is, or I already consumed whatever it was, and now I don't want to pay for it. That's not really a godly attitude, though. So I think we should have a biblical understanding of debt. We should go into it with wisdom. I think I talked last time about consumer debt versus, or maybe it was the very first one of the series, consumer debt versus business debt, right? Going into debt, putting something on a credit card or whatever, just purely to consume, versus business debt where you're going into debt, but it's to earn money, it's to, maybe grow a business, things like that. That's wiser debt, but it's still debt. So something that we should go into cautiously, maybe get some good counsel, things like that. So that's debt. I think the Bible has some good things to say on that. And the main thing is be cautious. Okay, be cautious. But if you go into debt, go into it with the understanding and attitude, I have promised to pay this back. I need to pay it back. Proverbs 21:20 is where we're going to go next, but this is going to kind of shift into this idea of saving. Saving. Don't consume everything that you make. Don't take every dollar and put it into something that's, giving me my best life. I find my hope in all the eating out that I do, or my car, or my clothes, or whatever. This is not how we as Christians, certainly, should be viewing things. Proverbs 21:20 says this: precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. So fools are the ones who consume everything that they earn. You get some here, right? The oil and precious treasure, right? They're stored up. They're ready. They're saved. They're put aside in whose dwelling? The wise man's dwelling. So again, in today's world, the foolish people would be rising up and saying, tax this horrible guy who's got all this treasure and oil. He's evil. Well, not necessarily. Okay, just because somebody has more than us, just because somebody has and maybe we don't, does not mean that they're somehow evil. They've gotten it, by some kind of surreptitious, finagling people. It doesn't mean that. Sometimes people are just wiser with their money. Sometimes people work hard and earn money and don't spend every dime, and so they've got a little bit more saved up. They've got a little bit more they can work with. And we should not, as I said last time, we should not be looking at being rich or wealthy as good or bad, just in and of itself. It's not good people, rich people must be good and poor people must be bad, or vice versa. Well, poor people are clearly virtuous and rich people are clearly evil. That's not it. It's, does our total kind of picture of ourselves, does that look good biblically, or are we getting our priorities out of whack? Or is the wealth now our priority? Is being rich now, that's our identity? That's where we get into trouble. So I think we need to have a biblical picture of these things. And the Bible says it's a foolish person that devours everything consumes everything that they earn or they get. So really, we shouldn't be, again, I'm not trying to twist the scripture or anything, but if you look at this scripture, I would question whether we should be carrying credit card balances on things that we're just consuming. I mean, because isn't that you don't even, you really don't even have the money to get it, whatever the it is. Forget about getting it and devouring it. I mean, you don't even have the money, and now you can get it because of a credit card. Now, they didn't have credit card, back then. So I think we just need to be very careful. Consumer debt, super, super, super. I mean, skull and crossbones. Beware. Be concerned. Be wise. Just really look at it. Proverbs 13:11 says this: wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. So little here, little there, saving here and there, storing away. Now check this out. Washington Post had an article on lottery winners, and this is something that a lot of people kind of throw this out, and it's sometimes overused, but it is true. It is true. Here's what they said. Research shows that winning significant prizes is not the ticket to Easy Street. When a team of economists tracked the fortunes of financially distressed people in Florida who had won the lottery, so they are lottery winners, they found that within 3 to 5 years, the winners of big prizes were equally likely to have filed for bankruptcy as the small winners, and the groups had similarly low savings and levels of debt. According to the National Endowment for Financial Education, about 70% of people who win a lottery or receive a large windfall go bankrupt within a few years. So all that stuff about people who win the lottery within 3 to 5 years, they don't have any money, possibly they're filing bankruptcy. It is true. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's pretend you won $50 million. And again, very simple example, very easy just to kind of follow the math and look at it. $50 million. And then they go and they buy a house and they pay it off in cash. $50 million house. Maybe it's down in South Florida, right on the water, beautiful place. And they owe nothing on it. Nothing. Now, they got that $50 million not because they saved little by little, according to the scriptures here, not because they have a job that really, puts them in a place where they can afford that, but because they won the lottery. Now, they have no debt. They bought the house free and clear. How much do you think the insurance and the taxes are on that house? Think about that for a minute. How much are the insurance and taxes on that house? $50 million house. If your taxes and insurance are 1% per year, between the two, like taxes and insurance equals 1%, okay? That means that you will be owing on that house, right, $50 million, right? 10%, $50 million, that's $5 million. So 1% would be what? $500,000. How many people have $500,000 of income coming in? They're going to owe that much money every single year on taxes and insurance. So you can see how even if you bought it with cash, but you're not generating the kind of income you need, you're going to lose the house because taxes and insurance, you can't afford it. And so you're homeless, even though you bought it and had no debt. You bought the house with cash. But see, people don't think like this because a lot of lottery winners, they don't have financial education. They don't know, they're not really thinking about these things. They're just going, ooh, again, not every lottery winner. I don't know a lot of lottery winners. I'm just saying, though, based on the data and based on thinking it through, okay? Let's take someone, they don't have financial education, they're not wise in their finances, then all of a sudden they have $50 million, $100 million. They are a person that is still unwise in finances, have no financial education, and just have a lot of money. That's why they burn through it so quick. They buy a house over here, some cars over here, huge vacation over here. And then they realize, oh my goodness, I've spent my money and I don't have any regular inflow for the next year, and then the next year, and then the next year, and they go bankrupt. So gets back to Proverbs 13:11. There was no lottery back then that I'm aware of, right? There certainly wasn't a Florida lottery. Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Lottery winner, not so much. But somebody who slowly but surely every single paycheck is building, they build that same $50 million, that's probably not going anywhere. And that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Financial education, wisdom with finances, that's what we need. We've talked about debt. We're talking about savings right now. Now let's go to another very popular portion of Scripture. You probably know it as soon as I start reading it. Proverbs 6:6-11. Go to the ant, O sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. Without having any chief, officer, or ruler, she prepares her bread in summer and gathers her food in harvest. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you arise from your sleep? A little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. Now, it is putting this in the context not just of storing up wisdom, storing up spiritual insights and blessings. I think it, that could apply, but it's specifically talking about poverty. And it's saying, don't be lazy, get out there and hit it. So it's dealing with the consistency, it's dealing with the work ethic, okay, the little by little. This is how we need to be. We need to store up. That's saving. We need to store up. We need to plan. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It needs to happen. The Bible deals with it. It's common financial sense, which the average person does not have, but we need to develop this. It's not rocket science. It's not, you got to learn how to do brain surgery plus send a rocket to the moon in the next year. It's simple behavior modification. Change your behavior. Stop the spending, start saving. That's more difficult to do just because of the pain of it, or the shift in attitude and shift in action, but it's not something that's hard to do because it's difficult to understand or something like that. It's blocked. There's huge economies of scale. I can't possibly. Yeah, we could, but will we? Will we stop eating out 6 times a week and save, or will we keep doing it, right? If we can't, I can't save money. Well, then cancel all your Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus and put that money toward it. I mean, these are things we can absolutely do. It's just, can we live without, Netflix and Starbucks for a few months? Next up, I want to talk about a scripture that I really like a lot. I'm going to say investing in diversification. Now, the Bible isn't a book about the stock market. There was no stock market back then. But it does have some very cool insight into this. You may have had someone that told you, or maybe you've heard the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Check this out. Now, in investing, that's called the fancy word is diversification, right? But let's look at Ecclesiastes 11. Ecclesiastes 11, 1-4. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Give a portion to 7 or even to 8, for you know not what disaster may happen on earth. Planning ahead and thinking about, hey, something could happen. I could have a harvest over here, but it could go bad. I could have, a flock over here, but something happened to that flock. So instead of putting everything into one harvest, one flock, how about spreading that around and having multiple things that I can kind of rely on, so that if all of them come to fruition, awesome, I'm going to have a windfall year. But if, some disease hits the flock over here, some famine causes the grain over here to go bad, I'm not stuck without anything. That's a pretty wise thing to do. Now, verse 3 says, if the clouds are full of rain, they empty themselves on the earth, and if a tree falls to the south or to the north, in the place where the tree falls, there it will lie. He who observes the wind will not sow, and he who regards the clouds will not reap. When we look at, I can't come up with $1,000 right now, therefore, what? I just won't do anything. No, how about, can you come up with $1 right now? Can you come up with 5? Can you come up with 10? What's the max you could come up with in a month if you were to go absolute buck wild crazy and cut everything out of your life except necessities only? Now, Starbucks is not a necessity. Food is a necessity, but eating out is not a necessity. Clothing is a necessity, but new clothes in the next month probably are not, unless you only have one pair of shoes and it's going completely, to pot or something. No, we probably could. Think about it. Just think for a second. What could I do? What could I come up with in a month if I just said no extras, just the necessities? Is it $50? Is it $100? Is it $1,000? And do that. I can't do it in a month. Okay, do it today, and then do that again tomorrow, and those days will add up to a week, and then those weeks will add up to a month. It's behavior. It's unwinding and breaking down the American mindset. Okay, that we gotta have it, which is not true, and we gotta have it now, which is certainly not true. And if we can't have it now because I can't afford it, then I'll just throw it on a credit card and I can have it now. These are all absolutely incorrect. We need to pick those dominoes up. We need to go all the way back to you don't need it. Okay, don't need it. Bread and peanut butter and jelly. Okay, now, but that's just not. Will it sustain you? Will it give you some calories so you can survive? Yes. Okay, so maybe even no jelly, bread and peanut butter. Hey, no bread, just peanut butter. I mean, Dave Ramsey, and I've mentioned him a couple times. I know. He says beans and rice, rice and beans, rice and beans, and beans and rice. Go on the rice and beans diet. Yeah, because you go to the store, you buy a big old huge honking bag of rice, you get some beans, you eat that for lunch and dinner, and then you throw a little sugar on it, and you can have rice for breakfast if you want, with maybe some milk or something. And you're not living the best, maybe optimal that you would like to, but you're doing that, and you're saving tons of money, you're paying down debt, you're actually being wise with your income. Now, if you're 20, you might have an easier time than if you're 60 listening to this, but you can do it regardless. And that's the thing. That's the point. These are all concepts that we can start doing now. So we've talked about debt. We have talked about work ethic. We have talked about saving. Now, I'm gonna mention quickly generational wealth. Generational wealth, I think, is a good thing. I don't think we should just be looking at ourselves. I don't think we should say, well, I'm good, so that's it. I think if we have children, we should be looking to expound that. And I'm going to go further and even say, from a community, like a church perspective, if you're at a church, it really is your community. This is the kingdom of God. We should also be thinking about that. How can I contribute to this? How can I make sure this goes forward? How can I make sure even after I'm gone that I'm contributing and helping the kingdom of God to continue to live on? But particularly, I'm talking about children here. 2 Corinthians 12:14. Here, for the third time, I am ready to come to you, and I will not be a burden, for I seek not what is yours, but you. For children are not obligated to save up for their parents, but parents for children. This doesn't mean that, children should be living with their parents till they're 50 years old, mooching off them, not working. Okay, go back and listen to the first session where I talked about work ethic, and if you're not working, you shouldn't eat. This means parents should be thinking about kind of launching their kids, building a foundation for their kids. Is it such a weird idea for parents to put their children first? It is a weird idea. Even in the church, I find people, they just don't think like that. Like, oh wow, I should sacrifice, I should withhold, I should refrain so that I can do better for my children. Wow, what a concept. It's right there in the Bible. Psalm 127, 4 and 5. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. I believe our children are they're like, again, he could have used any analogy. He could have used any weapon, a staff, a sword. But he said they're like arrows, right? To be pulled back and launched, to be cast out there, to go sometimes even where you can't go. I think it's a good idea for parents to plan, to do things that can create even generational wealth. I do not believe in spoiling kids. I do not believe in creating an atmosphere where people are just born with a silver spoon in their mouth and they're just, they're just little entitled tyrants running around. I don't believe that, but you can certainly train up children, even with great wealth, to not be that. It does take training, just like anything takes training, but you can certainly do that. And I think it's important for us to do that. Last thing here, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Proverbs 12:15. We've already read this, but I'm going to read it again because I'm going to go into some suggested materials, some things that you might find useful or helpful. Proverbs 12:15. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice. I mean, really up until about 2 or 3 years ago, by most measures, people would say, oh, successful, good job, went to school, got things paid off, like all this stuff. But I had like a radical transformation, started thinking outside the box, started doing more things, doing reading, listening to stuff, growing, and getting involved with even more things, more diversification than I had ever done before. And that's to let people know, even if you are quote unquote successful, you don't have to stop growing. You can still listen. You can still take in things. You can still continue to expand. There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is, again, if the wealth and all, the accumulation of assets and all this stuff, if it starts taking the priority in your life, that's where it becomes a problem. So for those of you who want to learn and grow and develop, I'm going to give you some resources. I will also post these in the YouTube, on the YouTube channel, on this video, sort of in the show notes section, right? We have a video description for those of you that not, maybe don't go there or whatever. Got the video description. We've got links and stuff to some of our resources at the bottom. I'll put show notes and I'll include these suggestions. So I'll just run through them real quick. These are folks that I listen to, folks that I follow, folks that I recommend. And again, when I make a recommendation, that's not a full-throated recommendation. Everything they say is 100%. Some of these people actually disagree with each other on a lot of stuff. So it's really just a matter of places to go to kind of pick up information. A couple of them on real estate. If you're interested in like real estate investing or things like that, there's Ken McElroy. He's got a book called The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. He's also got a podcast, Real Estate Strategies. And then Jason Hartman's another one. Again, real estate, he's got the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. It's a podcast. These guys, again, what I like about pretty much everybody that I'm getting ready to name, it's not just about what their little thing is. Like the podcast is not every single time 100% just talking about investing in real estate. I'll give you an example. I was listening to Ken McElroy a couple days ago, and the whole show was about how to build wealth or how to be rich even when you're young. And strategies with starting like in your early 20s with doing things. Maybe you don't have as much money, you don't have as much, experience on your job, but you can start getting started. You can get started now and start building good habits so that when you're 30 and 40, you're way ahead of the game. So that has nothing to do with quote unquote real estate, but that's what the whole show is about. Now, most of these people, again, that's how their shows are. They talk about all kinds of stuff. They have guests on their shows, so you can get even more suggestions. And I've accumulated this stuff over months and months of listening, so you get it without all of that. I'm just breaking it down, giving you some great suggestions here. Next up is a guy named George Gammon. He does macroeconomics, so a lot of talking about the economy in general, talking about the Fed, talking about inflation, talking about things going on maybe in the stock market, the crypto market, whatever it is. Good stuff. He's got the Rebel Capitalist show, and again, all these people, I'll have links to their websites and stuff. Peter Schiff is another one. Now he's more of people might say like a gold bug. He's kind of gold, silver, foreign stocks. Again, very informative guy, very knowledgeable guy, and he has the Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff, S-C-H-I-F-F, Peter Schiff Show. That's a mouthful, I guess. Peter Schiff Show. It's a podcast. Great resources there. He actually founded a company that you can go and you can buy. You can invest with the company. You can buy, gold, silver, metals, things like that from them. And then these other guys like Jason Hartman and Ken McElroy, George Gammon, most of them have like mastermind groups you can pay to be a part of, or like pro, like they've got their website, they've got the free stuff, then they have like a pro version you can pay for and like maybe ask questions, one-on-one, things like that. Tom Wheelwright is CPA, and he talks about taxes. So as you're doing things, as you're going out there investing, starting a business, making some money, whatever, you want to make sure you get your taxes squared away. Oh, you really do. He has a book called Tax-Free Wealth. He has a show called The Wealthability Show. It's a podcast. Got a couple of websites, tomwheelwright.com, wealthability.com. So again, great resource there for thinking through taxes on the business side and coming at it from a perspective of trying to minimize your tax burden, but stay compliant and do things smart up front. So on the back end, you're not, trying to correct things. Dave Ramsey, already mentioned him, already talked about him. Total Money Makeover. He's got the podcast. And then Robert Kiyosaki, already mentioned him. Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. He's actually got a board game that you can get, like you can play it with your kids. It's called, I think, the Cash Flow board game. It's kind of like Monopoly type of thing, but it teaches them some of these concepts, how to manage money and things. And of course, he's got the Rich Dad radio show as well. Again, lots of great resources. If you want to grow, you want to develop, you want to learn, we really don't have any excuse. One thing I love about this country, one thing I love about some of this is there are so many resources. I think every one of these people has like a YouTube channel, a podcast, free content, free information. Most of these guys are absolutely about financial education, giving people the tools they need, just like I'm doing right now from a scriptural perspective, trying to help people to navigate this current financial crisis, this financial storm, the things going on, economically. These are going to affect us. It's going to affect people. It's going to affect families, and I want to help you. So, again, we need to realize most of the stuff boils down to behavior. Most of the stuff boils down to mindsets and attitude changes. So we need to change things in our work ethic. We need to be diligent, consistent. We need to look at debt and savings. We need to really look at that stuff and develop a scriptural, biblical mindset when it comes to things like generational wealth, investing, and diversification. I think we can be wise in these things. I think there's some scriptural guidance that we can glean from. And then, of course, I always recommend people be lifetime learners. Learn and grow and develop, have fun doing it. And hopefully you will have a much better financial picture after these podcasts in this series. So, love you. God bless you. Hope this has all helped. And we will catch you on the next podcast.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that content from BreadBreakers. If you enjoyed the content, give us that thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions on future content or anything like that, don't forget to leave us a comment in the comment section. Also, subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way, every time we put out something new, a new video, a new interview, whatever it might be, you will be notified. We will throw some additional videos and playlists up here on the screen. And as always, God bless you. We'll catch you on the next video.